Good evening, board members. A few months ago, we were here to talk about where we were at with the process of redesigning what is the current space up at the high school as the West Library. So over the last couple of months, we've had an opportunity to do some site tours, visit different places, look at photographs and videos of different libraries that have been redone into current day standards. And so today we're lucky enough to have our team from Bray here who's going to share with you a floor plan, a conceptual design of a floor plan for the space, along with some 3D renderings and a short video of what that space could potentially look like. So I'll ask them to come on up and share this evening.
Thank you for being here tonight. Good to see you guys again.
Good evening, thank you. Mike Hacker, Agatha Vonderberg, Craig Stranathan, all with Bray Architects. As was just introed, we thought we'd take 10-15 minutes. Early on in the process, we had said that we wanted to keep the board abreast of where we're at in the process, what the design is looking like. We thought tonight would be a good chance to do that. We spent the past 6 to 8 weeks or so really going through kind of a schematic design effort where we've talked about needs, we've gone to tour some other spaces, have done some test fits on the existing space, and I think I have some exciting stuff to present to you tonight. So what we're gonna do is walk you through the schedule, just where we've been and what's to come, talk to you a little bit about the process to date, and then look at some plans and some renderings as well. So we're gonna target the 10 to 15 minutes or so for this, but more than happy to answer questions as we go or certainly answer them at the end. Okay?
Great.
As Mike said, I'm Craig Stranathan with Bray Architects. I'll start out with the schedule. Our process, the slide shows our process thus far and where we're going to go in the future. But starting out, we had a few meetings and tours to kind of present the conceptual, or to figure out the conceptual design, but also to get some precedent imagery, look at different schools, things like that. We have been working through the design development phase from late January through the end of, and we're continuing to work through it to about mid-March. But basically that is putting together what the floor plans would look like, what the space looks like, pretty much what you'll see tonight. So this is a preview of what that would be, hopefully to get feedback or any kind of thoughts on that. Moving forward, we will start the construction document phase. We've actually been dipping our toes into that phase so far, just getting floor plans set up, getting everything else ready to go so we can really roll through that phase, because March 30th comes pretty quick. So beyond March 30th, we get into the bidding phase for the project, and then after April 17th, we get into construction. So, is that?
Oh, I already spoiled that. If I stand here, can everybody hear me? All right, so I can see that. Thank you. So again, I'm Agatha Vonderberg with Bray. Happy to be here tonight. This is a slide kind of describing our design process. So one of the first things we like to do when we embark on a collaborative process with a client is to understand the problem together. And I really love this quote by John Dewey: "A problem well put is half solved." So our goals really at the inception of this effort were to be able to identify the goals together and reach a consensus on said goals, so that we knew that we were kind of moving forward towards the same path, and that we were solving problems that we all kind of had our heads around. We explored opportunities within the space. We certainly had the confines of the library itself, but there were many opportunities that presented themselves, particularly with how much square footage was available to us. It's a pretty large space. We created options. We got feedback from said options, and then we are kind of in the process of finalizing, which still has revisions and discussions and refinements that happen within the finalization process, but that's kind of where we're at, and we're going to take you through what some of the portions of this process look like and where we've ended up. So a slide just acknowledging that we've done extensive efforts understanding your existing space, both from an architectural standpoint as well as from an HVAC, structural, and electrical standpoint, knowing that all of our consultants are on board to be able to talk through with us and with the team kind of what the opportunities and parameters are within the existing space. Next, as Tim touched on a little bit, we did some site visits. We went to McGuanago, Slinger, and Port Washington, all libraries that we felt were good examples to cull from. At McGuanago, that top image on the left shows, sort of described as a place kind of like a third space for them. It's not quite inside the library, and it's not quite a part of a corridor space, but it with the garage doors that open on either side, kind of allows more of a broad spectrum of the student population to filter into that space, filter through it, and then be sort of a part of the library and outside of it. So that was something that the West Bend group was very excited about, and a space that we tried to recreate in some ways in our design. Slinger was a really good example of a buried library, as we call them, one without access to immediate natural light. And in the bottom image, you can start to see hints of a skylight, which is a similar method that we employed at West Bend Library. And then Port Washington really just for kind of a modernization of space, being able to update and give flexibility to spaces that would otherwise sort of go unnoticed in the development plans. So themes and feedback. We heard that we wanted these spaces to be, within the library, to be flexible, updated, and welcoming. That can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people, but we just wanted to sort of capture this rather than do sort of principles for design or a narrative about it. This was really a nice snapshot that kind of stuck with us throughout the design process and enabled us to kind of check back in to our progress and make sure that we were hitting all of these points. So we wanted flexibility that would allow for independent study or dependent study, meaning maybe with students and a teacher, individual group studies. We obviously wanted the space to be welcoming, inviting, exciting, safe, something that really draws students in. And then just the normal updates that come with aging facilities, right? New carpet, new ceilings, refreshing paint, and being able to kind of define space. Along with that, we discussed something that we described as space actuators. So I am a firm believer in if you build it, they might not come. You have to give them a reason to come. So this was our way to find those reasons and make sure that we could articulate the space around said reasons to be able to shape the space appropriately. Those fall into several categories. Passive space actuators could be something as simple as natural light that could be brought in with skylights. Transparency, meaning windows between spaces. Active ones would be esports is something we talked about, engaging displays, or even sort of this cafe component with its adjacency, with the library's adjacency to the Nifty Nibble.
Nifty Nibble.
Yep, thank you. So making sure that we can have kind of a cohesive relationship between the two. And then again, reinforcing how we wanted the space to be welcoming. So with that, we'll get into the floor plans. This one will kind of be the dry backdrop, and then we'll layer on information as we go, kind of giving you a sense of all the major elements of this library space. You can see, if I can point, or if you can point, to this is actually built space within the current library. I think there's a speech office there and another staff office. So these are hard walls here that we're proposing taking away and opening up the corridor. So the Nifty Nibble is just kind of off the screen there. And by scooping this space up, we're trying to intimate a little bit of that environment that we saw at McGuanago, opening up that kind of third space, that space that belongs to both the library and the school, welcoming students in, filtering kind of a coffee shop feel, something like that. And with that, we've opened up a wide glass operable door, currently conceived of as an overhead door, that would be open most of the time, or that would be the goal, for it to be able to kind of just be a part of the space, not really a wall between library and rest of school. Still, recognizing the need to be able to close off the library and have regular doors in and out, but that's just kind of a different way to approach that space. Highlighted in green then is where we have allotted dedicated stacks. We work with Kim closely to understand what the goals for the number of volumes in the collection would be. And this represents, though it would be furniture, not architecture, but just making sure that we can fit that in, so this represents that accurate number. And then highlighted here in purple would be the circulation desk. We have a really nice location for it in that it gives us visibility into almost all corners of the space, so there aren't really any blind corners within the library. It also allows us to create a little desk, which is something we learned about from Kim and her team for sort of a student resource offer for bringing in Chromebooks that need to be repaired or things like that. So not always staff, but just a space to dedicate to that activity.